Good Monday morning to you. It is 2 a.m. I'm JC Birch.
And I'm Eric Yutzi. We have team coverage for you all throughout the morning from Broward County all the way down to Key West. We also have our Weather Authority team staying on top of the storm's progress.
Okay, let's go ahead and get straight over to Julie.
That's right, you guys. So one thing you notice from those tower cams, there's some areas that are getting pounded with heavy rain this morning, and there's some areas that are even seeing some cloud cover breaking apart to see the moon. So what's happening, South Florida? What has been happening? Well, we have been under tropical storm force winds and rain inundating South Florida from Fort Lauderdale, Miami, all the way down to the Keys for the last 48 hours. The biggest concern, which is what we talked about Friday, was going to be flooding, and that's exactly like what we expected and what we're dealing with. Currently, Tropical Storm Eta is 25 miles northwest of Marathon after making landfall just after 11 p.m. Meteorologist Brandon Orr will have more details on that, but the one thing I do want you to see is that the forecast projected path has the system continuing on that west-northwest path. As of 14 miles per hour, the winds are at 65 miles per hour, pressure 992 millibars. It will continue to move away from us, but the one thing we have continued to tell you and wanted you to understand, the system is so lopsided that the worst of the weather of the system has been on the northeastern quadrant, and that is where South Florida has been the whole time of no matter where the center has gone. It started over Cuba. We were still on the northeastern side of the system. It continued that turn to the west. We're still on the northeastern side. Now the wind profile, you'll see it. It's very extended out, about 100 miles of tropical storm force winds still being expected in parts of Broward, Miami-Dade, and the Keys. So even though the system is moving away from us and expected to actually strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane over the southeastern half of the Gulf of Mexico by tomorrow, and then eventually, look at that, it takes its way towards the north and could make a landfall over northern Florida, possibly by Cedar Key, just north of Tampa, as we go into Thursday. Our immediate threat is more rainfall, more flooding. That's why we do have lots of watches and warnings still in effect this morning. So getting straight to the radar, where we're seeing the worst of the weather right now. Right now, a few showers over Coral Springs, but this is nothing like what you dealt with overnight in the last 48 hours. Weston starting to see yet another wraparound band bringing gusty winds and gusty downpours over Pines Boulevard, Pembroke Pines. That stretches all the way towards Hollywood. So now we're starting to see yet another band wrapping around the center of Eta, but right now doing plenty of damage. With rainfall totals, we've seen in these bands about a half an inch to a quarter of an inch to even an inch in some areas. So let's check this out. Right now, over 75 by Miramar, we have almost an inch of rainfall expected. By Miami Gardens, we're expecting about a quarter of an inch. And inundated in these downpours are some very gusty winds. Not only that, we also look for severe weather, the possibility of some rotation, some tornadic activity with these outer bands of a system. And since the system is so close to us, that could still be the threat, especially because we're seeing such heavy downpours. Finally, a nice little break by Coral Gables and towards Miami-Dade, all the way south towards Cutler Bay, but another round of rain right over Homestead in the upper Keys. Moderate to heavy rain from Marathon to Isla Mirada. And then as we widen the view, the one thing we're noticing is let's pay attention to the winds embedded in these storms. Look at this, winds gusting in the 30s in Pembroke Pines, 41 mile per hour wind gust in Fort Lauderdale, 35 mile per hour wind gust in Pompano Beach. The winds continue to pile in our showers and storms across South Florida and unfortunately really doing devastating conditions to our beaches. We have 33 mile per hour wind gusts reported in Hialeah, 29 mile per hour wind gusts in Miami, 33 inundated in this downpour right over Kendall. So you can see the only area dealing with tropical storm force wind gusts right now is Fort Lauderdale at 41 miles per hour with those storms moving in. Currently into the Keys we go, 25 mile per hour wind gusts in Marathon, 24 in Key West. So you can see the rain is not done. Not at all. We've got plenty of rain over the western Atlantic that will continue to wrap around the center, which is located right about here, just north of the middle and the lower Keys. And remember, the center is expected to push westward, and that rain will continue to pile in. So we're not only talking about more rain, we're talking about more wind, and we're talking about the possibility of more flooding through our afternoon and into the evening hours. But the one thing I can tell you is the winds do start to subside the further away the system gets. So we'll talk about 7 a.m., still dealing with the possibility of tropical storm force winds extending all the way up to northern Florida, but see the immediate threat for hurricane force winds clouds will be just west of Key West. And then as we go into tonight, we'll see the system move well away, where our winds will start to die down, and then we'll see an improvement in our weather forecast. Not only are we dealing with the rain, but we are dealing with that onshore flow, and that's continuing to bring the threat for beach erosion and unfortunately storm surge. Now on top of that, we have high tide that is arriving in the matter of the next hour. I'm going to toss it over to Brandon Orr for more on that and the watches and warnings and the storm damage we've already seen.
Yeah, because we have seen some damage from the winds, but like you mentioned, Julie, I think the worst of the winds are over. We're still going to get some high gusts, but I think it's going to be a lot calmer a little bit later on this morning than what we've seen overnight. So we're kind of in the second half. We're in the back half of Tropical Storm Eta, which I want to show you why we did not see the storm strengthen as it approached the Keys. Remember, we got that hurricane warning issued yesterday, thinking it had a possibility to reach Category 1 status. But look at all this dry air. It's this color here in orange. And what happened was we had dry air that wrapped into the center, and this is what water vapor looks like now. It's still showing that dry air is getting wrapped into the center. In fact, it took a big gulp of dry air into the core of the system, and that prevented it from strengthening even though it was over that warmer water. So I think that'll continue to be the case at least for the good part of today, and then it may have some time to strengthen, but at that point it's away from land and it's sitting out there in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So we're watching these rain bands, in particular, some of these coming in off the coast of Miami-Dade. We've been watching out for the potential for maybe a brief spin up or two in terms of a tornado. Really haven't seen much evidence of that. There has been some rotation, probably some water spouts off the coast of Miami-Dade too, but as soon as they get close, the rotation kind of falls apart. That's good news. We want to continue to see that. So right now, no immediate tornado threat, but it's something we'll have to watch out for through the rest of the morning. Here are those wind gusts, by the way. They did reach pretty high in some places. That got some of the heavier rain bands, especially in Broward, as high as 69 miles per hour. So yeah, we were pushing 70 miles per hour in some places. We have some scattered power outages to go along with that. We reached 60 miles per hour over in Fort Lauderdale, even down towards Homestead, especially out towards Florida City, as you get far southern Miami-Dade. Towards the Everglades, we saw some wind gusts over 60 miles per hour as well. So here are those flood warnings, flash flood warnings. That's a little bit different. That water can rise in a hurry. And now the rain is over areas that didn't see as much flooding yesterday. So we're getting a bit of a break in a good chunk of Broward, but we're watching this band that's over Miami Beach, and then we're watching this other one that's down here towards Homestead. So both sides of that warning, we'll have to watch out for some flooding, especially now that we're getting towards high tide. And I think that's going to be kind of the big story now, is that these winds are coming in onshore and still gusting pretty good, 41 miles per hour in Fort Lauderdale, but look at the wind direction more than anything else here in the Keys too. It's shoving all that water against the coastline. So I know in the Keys we started out, and still in Key West, because the center of the storm is still up in here, you're still getting flooding coming in from the Gulf side, but you'll have to flip over to the Atlantic side later this morning, just in time for high tide down there in Key West, which is coming up at 3:33. High tide in Miami-Dade and Broward is earlier. It's hitting here in the next 30 minutes. We already have higher water than we've seen in any of the king tides so far this season. So if you flooded during the king tides, and I know it was significant in some places over the past couple of months, expect that water to get a little bit higher than that. That's something that we're really going to watch out for and see how that plays out in the next couple of hours. We got lots more to cover. I'll be back if we see any new updates, JC.